recording. Ladies and gentlemen, I got Paul from Taylor, Michigan. He is a Southern boy right here.
Well, hello, Johnny. How you doing?
Man, I am wonderful, but I'm going to tell you something else, man. You are really, really good at what you do with this whole sound thing.
Well, thank you, Johnny. I really appreciate
What
that.
got you into doing sound?
Well, one day I was just helping out with a college ministry, and they were like, hey, you're good with technology. And so I decided that, hey, I could figure out this mixer thing too. And then God just continued to use it in my life.
So wait a second. You gave up playing guitar and drums and bass and all that stuff to go behind the scenes and actually make everybody sound good.
Actually, it's a little bit funnier than that. I actually gave up my degree in computer-assisted drafting and engineering.
Wait, you gave up everything to do this?
Yeah, basically. Essentially, what happened was God crushed an entire industry in the state that I live in and crushed an economy for a few years. And I went, oh, geez, what am I supposed to do?
Right.
And here I am.
So wait a second. So basically somebody walked up to you and said, you know a little bit about technology. You said yes, and then they literally threw you behind a board?
Yeah, pretty much. That's real. That's pretty accurate.
And how many years have you been doing it?
Well, right now I've been doing it for about.
Wait, are you from the South or are you not from the South?
No,
because
I'm not from the South at all. That's just a really, really bad fake accent.
I thought for a second you were from Taylor.
Yeah, from Taylor. Not Taylor, Turkey, but
right,
Taylor.
From Taylor.
But when we had a ministry that needed help, I just stepped in, and God inspired me to pursue that passion. And I had a bit of a different background with media from high school and being an orchestral player, but never really with the sound equipment. I decided to delve into it, learn it, and as my career outlooks were changing, I kind of noticed this different calling in my life, and God just kept opening door after door. So I went from working these little soundboards that maybe the size of my hand, maybe two of them put together, in terms of size, to having this really rare opportunity to be on basically desks, mixers that are the size of, large tables, and operating and running the entire system from the ground up and designing systems. And then I eventually got a job doing oddball things with bands and bars and continuing on from there.
And you also have your own studio now too, right? So you don't only do this for other people, you do it for yourself.
Oh, absolutely. So I own Soulbridge Studio. That's kind of been my hope and my dream to build a place where I can help people create content.
People like me.
Yep, exactly. And do what we're doing here.
Right. So, and you've been doing that for how long? How long have you had your studio?
So the studio has been a actual business with a name, with goals, with focus, for probably about 4 or 5 months in terms of a named established company.
Right. Because I know I've been using you for a couple of years now.
Oh, yeah,
right?
absolutely.
But it just didn't have a name and didn't have that real business sense, right?
Exactly. So in terms of acquiring equipment, in terms of developing my skill set, that's been going on for almost a decade now.
Yeah,
it's
right,
crazy.
right. I was going to say,
how
because
quickly that's gone by.
It's been a business, but just not this big of a business.
No, absolutely not. And it's been something that God's definitely stepped into in huge ways in my life. Opportunities that probably couldn't happen any other way. For instance, our relationship was just
I met you at church.
Exactly.
Exactly. I was getting my T-shirts from the guy from church. I was getting my sound guy, stuff done from the guy at church, and it's really cool.
Yep, absolutely. And that was kind of one of the things. I kept getting landed in these situations where, hey, you know how to do this. Can you help with this? And went, yeah, I think I could.
Yeah.
Hey, you're passionate about this. Have you thought about trying this? No, let's try it, and some experimenting and some finding out, I can do that. And some finding out like, no, that's not really my talent. Like graphic design, not really my talent. I would not try to design my own logo. Let's put it that way. It looks like child crayon drawings, you know, where they hold it in their hand.
Those seem to be the biggest and coolest thing these days. Is the more I believe right now, because I can't draw where the lick, but I guarantee you that me and you could like close our eyes and draw something and sell it tomorrow and make money doing it. If that's what we wanted to do.
Depending on how you market it. Yeah, we could go for the really abstract look, you know, and then tie it to some more fundamental theme.
Right. See, it's on the way you market things.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely. Marketing is so important in everything, in terms of business and finding things. But I truly believe, even with my own business and my own designs, there's a blessing that comes from doing it right.
Yep.
From doing it in a way that respects the others around you, the people that you work
Amen.
with. You know, and there's. When you follow the principle of you treat everybody, you know, the golden rule, when you treat somebody how you would want to be treated. Like when you come to the studio and we do a recording for, say, NASCAR or Chevy or anything like that. I come in and I try to have what I can prepared for you before you come in. I try to be early, and make sure that you come in and we use your time the best way possible. Sometimes it's more we're discussing content and figuring it out, but that during that time I'm setting up, if things were closer or if things are mostly set up and we're just needing the check. But really trying to make sure that we use time the most effective way possible, because you are a client of mine at that point, you know, but I really try hard to make sure that everybody gets treated that way.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And I think that's part of, building it. That's part of creating something sustainable for those around me.
So not only do you have a passion for sound, you have a passion for God.
Yep.
But now it wasn't too long ago that you got married. And I have to say, because I mean, it's late at night now, it's after 11 o'clock, and you must have the most amazing wife for her to say to you, go ahead and be out there at all hours. Now you, first of all, you worked all day.
Yeah.
And then now you're still doing your other job, which is your studio stuff.
Yep.
That you helped me set up this studio in the house to make sure that the podcast would go well. She must be amazing. Or does she like doing this as well?
Well, so it's a little bit of all of the above. My wife has been nothing but an amazing blessing to my life. She's absolutely amazing. She's a wonderful woman. And a lot of the times with doing stuff like this, for instance, she works for a hospital, and sometimes her hours can be late at night, like right now. So she's actually right now in a unit taking care of patients.
So she's working right now.
Yeah, she's working right now till probably about 4 a.m.
Well, you thought that this was just going to be a setup and everything else. Well, I set you up, and you're obviously going to be
on this one.
You got me. Or I got you to be the first one on the podcast. So not only can I tell everybody how great you are at what you do, but you're my absolute first person on the podcast. How cool is that?
I end up being roped into being the guinea pig, apparently. So that's okay, though.
Let's get back to the important thing, your wife.
So my wife has definitely done a lot in terms of helping me pursue my dream. My studio, my business, the name of Soulbridge Studio actually came from her inspiration.
I remember you telling me about that.
We were trying to figure out, like, man, this thing needs a name. We need to get it licensed. We need to get it off the ground and really turn it into what our dream is that we want it to be. And we're laying in bed one night and she goes, you know what, honey? What do you think of this? We kind of talked about like different bridge motifs or light or these kind of different ideas that are more about kind of bridging the gap in the industry world, because there's definitely this kind of gap in industry between, there's very toxic things in the environment.
It's the entertainment business, period.
Let's be honest. There's no secret in the entertainment business about drug abuse, about alcoholism, about just these things that aren't healthy for people.
Yeah.
But it's so prolific in the industry.
Yep.
But at the same time, for some reason, some people think that this culture is completely the only way to have the studio business. But at the same time, like, I truly believe that you can have a studio that is completely successful, that doesn't have any of that environment, that inspires people from all walks of life. You know, it's really interesting, but I've worked on projects with Novel Films, which is a Christian film company that's coming out of Taylor from a dear friend of mine, Eric.
Yep.
And
Matter of fact, Eric did a couple of my
done some of your promo videos.
done,
Absolutely. And at the same time too, I've worked for guys under the Wu-Tang Clan label that are housed here in Detroit. You know? And things all in between, you know, from kids needing, you know, like stuff for jazz, trying to get scholarships for like U of M or EMU. That's Eastern Michigan University or Michigan University. And then, you know, to a gentleman that, you know, he's got a doo-wop group and he needs tracks made, to all these just different projects that come from entirely different walks of life, from entirely different places. I really want Soulbridge to become that place that people can do projects with me. We can work on film content. We can work on podcast content. We can work on music from all different walks, and really be a place that inspires good content, excellent content. Safe, but it's in a safe environment. It's an environment that both inspires people to make their content, but it's also an environment that you can have anybody come to you, you know, and not have any worry.
I've never been into a studio that, like yours, that has been 2 floors. I mean, your studio is literally 2 floors. I mean,
it's definitely,
which is cool. I mean, it has that really cool vibe. Yeah,
it's definitely a function over form.
Right.
I think would be the phrase for that one. The studio is definitely more of a unique design, trying to maximize how much space you can fit inside.
You did that.
A little room.
You definitely did that.
That's definitely what's going on there.
So would you say the old cliche has always been, behind every great man, there's a better woman?
Oh, absolutely.
Would you say in your case?
That is so much truth. Yeah. So my wife is definitely, I would say, my better half.
Yeah.
She is my teammate, my partner, my best friend, my lover. She really does help me go after the things that I'm called to be. And really, how
long have you been married?
We're 2 years.
Okay, 2 years. You saying all those things, it just made me think about a story that you told me right after you got married, because it took me some time to get into the studio, because you got sick, and you got sick on your honeymoon.
Oh yeah.
You got sick. So you got sick on your honeymoon, and today's Monday. You're leaving Friday or Saturday to take her on another honeymoon, kind of, because what happened? Well, can you tell everybody? Because I mean, it's not funny, but it kind of is.
Oh no, it's hilarious. Funny isn't the word. It's hilarious.
Because I remember trying to get in the studio for weeks, and you're like, John, I go, you just got back from your honeymoon. I know you have time, and I know you need money, and you're like, it's not that.
Yep,
I'm
absolutely
sick. Can you tell us that story? Because it is
so. My poor wife, who's a nurse. Oh goodness. So we get married, and you know, we didn't go straight into the honeymoon. We kind of had we had this month where we moved in together, got used to one another, and then we went on to our honeymoon in Florida. And you know, it kind of a fairly planned out honeymoon, you know, a couple of days over at Disney World. Mm-hmm. Then we drove a few hours south, I think to Pompano, just outside of Fort Wayne, I think.
Yep.
And, you know, everything's great. I go swimming. We go swimming in the ocean. It's like my second time ever getting to see and swim in the Atlantic.
Yeah.
Great time, have fun, get a good sunburn. as people as white as I do. You know, we kind of get back home and, you know, that night I'm just not feeling so good.
Right.
And it's like, okay, I have a pretty good sunburn and it's kind of like, maybe it's the sunburn. And then I find out, you know, I go to the bathroom, I'm not feeling good. Like, and I have basically this swollen mass.
It's not funny at all, but
right. Like, not to get too graphic, but right where the sun doesn't shine, like just not in a happy place, you know? And we're like, oh man, we're going to wait and we'll wait it out, see if it gets worse or anything. And we decide to try to wait a day. And cause we only had 2 days left.
Right.
Or 2.5 days before we got on our plane. And so we were like, okay, we're going to go to this like little wildlife walk. It was like maybe a quarter mile of walking for the whole thing. And then you take like an airboat ride. And like, I remember driving there, we do kind of like all the basics in it. I just start throwing up. Like everything just starts getting worse real quick.
I'm glad we're laughing about this because it wasn't fun at the time. I'm sure.
At the time, it wasn't fun. You know, it's kind of one of those, you kind of got to make the jokes about it when you're in the moment though, because you got to get through it somehow. Right. And well, what ends up happening is we go to like a little clinic, you know, just like, okay, this is what's going on. And then they're like, they actually cut me and they try to like drain and they're like, this could be something so much worse.
Wow.
And like, we are going to send you to the hospital right now. And me and Tiffany are like looking at one another. Like,
and you're in Florida and you still have to fly home.
We're
2 days from flying home.
We almost couldn't be farther apart from home.
Right.
And where we were supposed to be.
Okay, that's what I want to make sure that,
in terms of the US, like maybe Alaska or Hawaii. But yeah, it was kind of a crazy situation. And,
so you go to the hospital?
We go to the hospital and, they're like, okay, we need to fully admit you. And like, it turns into 5 days in the hospital. So that means the Airbnb that we booked went up. So Tiffany basically had to get like a Motel 6
right
for like 3 days. They basically run this gambit of tests. They go like, honestly, if you would have waited 2 more days, you would have died.
Wow. Or
you would have lost like the lower half of your body.
Wow.
It was absolutely crazy to kind of get that news. And they're like, okay, we're going to get you in surgery in 3 days. Okay.
Now you're still in Florida.
We're still in Florida.
Yeah, I just want to make sure everybody
like, there's no going home yet.
Right.
Like they have to do this stuff now. Otherwise, this bacteria that created all of this could spread and basically go through my whole body and give me blood poisoning. Just absolutely horrible. Really funny to think about when you go and you go through the surgery and we still joke about it in this exact way.
Right.
But I literally got torn a new butthole for my honeymoon. The thing that the people that are closer to my life know is I had that butthole. So we had problems with it healing for 1.5 years.
I was going to say, because you had that
I had a wound vacuum.
Yeah, you had a vacuum.
I literally had a vacuum tied to this thing at one point.
I remember being in the studio with you, and we had to turn it down because the microphones were picking up on the battery.
Yeah, no, I literally had to I got permission from my doctor before we recorded because I was seeing the doctor every day with this thing, and I got permission from my doctor to turn it off.
Right.
Just so we could do your sessions.
Because it was like, what's that noise? And we're like, I don't know. And I'm like, it's that vacuum.
It was the worst. We tried we tried one session or one segment with that thing on and we played it back and went like, oh no.
Yeah. I don't think Chevy's going to like this one.
Nope. And this thing was in such a precarious place. This whole thing was just so ridiculous. I would have needed a home nurse just to live.
Well, you kind of do.
And
You married one.
fortunately, I was blessed enough to marry one. You know, or at least a very trained practical nurse.
Right,
you know,
right,
from a CCU and an ICU background. And so like for me, I'm all embarrassed because like, you know, obviously where it was and stuff. And she's like,
yeah, no big deal.
It's my job.
It's right. Yeah.
I do this every day.
So all that being said, you now are taking her on a
Second honeymoon.
honeymoon. And where are you guys going?
Well, we're going to Southern California. So we're going to try the other coast.
I just thought about that. Wait a second. You just went from one coast to the
We're
other one.
We're trying the other one.
So are you going to go swimming in the ocean?
Yes. So
You're gonna try
we're going
it
to try
again.
that again. We're going to see how that goes. I think the other thing that most people don't know is, well, I have this wound. I do mission trips.
Right. Yep.
So I do short-term missions, mainly with a team from my church that is also teaming with long-term missionaries with YWAM.
Okay.
And, honestly, some of the best life-changing events in terms of speaking, in terms of engaging with people about real life.
Yeah.
If you want to do something like that, honestly, a mission trip, whether long-term or short-term, that's the calling that you're tied into. But you team in with a long-term missionary in a permanent church that's in the area.
Yep.
There's some crazy things that you'll see God do.
You know,
But the whole time I was with this on this trip, or on my last trip that I went on, I had this wound.
I didn't realize that you had the vacuum and everything.
So
too,
I didn't have the vacuum, so they gave up on the vacuum because what actually wasn't helping.
Okay.
So
where did you guys go on the mission trip?
So we went to Bogota, Chiquinquirá, and Ibagué inside of Colombia.
There was no hospitals like there are here in the U.S., right? Were you nervous at all?
Well, yes.
I mean,
of
you're
course.
doing all this for God and the people. That's great.
Bogota isn't a third world country. Bogota has modern medicine,
okay,
and actually fairly good modern medicine. Is it to necessarily the full standards of the U.S.? No, but when you're really talking. And you really cut things cut and dry. We're talking bacterial infection, which is what this essentially was. This is easily in the realm of their medical expertise. Easy. You know, You're talking about a developed country that can do transplant surgery and
so all the major.
So in terms of me getting sick, I wasn't worried. Obviously, I'm not going to go swimming with an open wound,
right,
or something. Which
and
is
your
really
wife did
sad
go
when
with you, right?
My Tiffany did go with me.
So you knew that you were someone who was there to take care of you. Like so, she knew what was going on anyway. So she's been through the whole process.
She made the sacrifice.
Yeah.
To take care of me. And I really say sacrifice because nothing's more interesting to say on a mission trip than when your wife is a medical professional goes, yeah, I've packed open wounds in bathrooms in South America. Nothing seems more weird or out of place to say like that expertise background.
So what did you guys do there?
So what we do when we do missions in South America, so I'm actually going to be going again in August. Essentially what we do is as short-term missionaries from the U.S., we're given a rare opportunity where people want to see us. People want to talk to us. The kids are really interesting because they think we all know Taylor Swift and Justin Bieber. It's really interesting. Like you'll straight up get in English, like, do you know Justin Bieber? From a little, 12-year-old boy or girl that's like completely enamored by American culture. But the unique thing that does is we can come in with a small band that can play good music. Yeah. And we can come in with translators and permanent churches that regularly move out and move into the areas that we open. And we act as kind of a battering ram for these churches to get into places that they may never have been able to access before.
Wow, that's cool.
So one of the examples is our teams partnered with several smaller churches in the city of Suba, or Subachoque. And basically, originally what was going on is all the churches were these independent entities just trying to kind of just exist.
Right.
And it was a very struggling church community. And we partnered up with a couple of churches that over several years, we're probably talking about half a decade. So before I've gone there, and I got to come in the middle and kind of see some of the end of it, where we were doing events in a park, just like literally the stage was pallets.
Right.
And like this, like a PA speaker that barely worked.
Right.
Like you could put a human's voice through it and it may sound human.
Right. I got you. Yeah.
Event, all the way to the church actually started stepping up. They developed teams that were going right to schools regularly. And we were the ones that broke down those doors where they were going into schools and they were giving the gospel in their country.
Wow.
There is no separation like there is here in terms of the gospel. If we want to give the gospel here in a school environment, we can invite the kids to come to us and speak to us.
Right.
But we can't preach the gospel.
Right.
But we can talk about real life here.
Yep.
Down there, we can talk about real life and straight up give the gospel in Colombia. And what eventually started to happen was the shift where the events got bigger. So we went from doing like a small park or a small event to like, we were outside of the largest mall in Bogota.
Wow.
And set up with a stage, and in just terms of foot traffic, we would be performing and giving the gospel to several thousand people in the day.
That's amazing. Did you ever think, though, in a million years that you would be in another country doing something cool like that and giving back to people?
Originally, if I started...
Because you're not that old. I mean, you're what, 30 years old, 29?
I'm just turning 30.
Yeah.
I'm 29 years old. And if I was 16, 18, and, going... after computer-assisted drafting and machining and going into these technical fields, which I still love.
Yeah,
they're very interesting and very useful talents that I was given in terms of my skill set. But if I was told, "Hey, you're gonna speak to a few thousand people," once a year in another country and perform down there and do sound and fix things and work with a missionary and make friends with people from across the world.
Right.
I would have laughed and went, "You're kidding me." I was such an introvert then.
Right.
Even
public speaking is the biggest fear in the world. I mean, people would rather die than to grab a microphone and talk.
It's one of those, it's such a hilarious thing, and I went from, basically going and doing a broken sentence in English with waiting for a translator and being so nervous out of my mind to being able to, for instance, this podcast and us just being able to have a conversation.
Right.
It really is something that through the opportunity and through being, let's be honest, uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I was able to grow and develop.
Yeah. That's like super sweet. So you are going to where?
We're going to be going to
you and your wife now.
Me and my wife are going to
San Diego, right?
San Diego, in the San Diego area.
How long?
Probably about 5 days.
Okay, so you're going to try the 5 days again.
We're going to try just 5 regular days, not the extended trip where it's 5 days plus 4 in the hospital.
Let me ask you this.
Knock on wood.
Before I let you go and wrap this up, what advice could you give somebody that may be struggling with whatever they're going through? And what I mean by that is, just like you said, you're like, hey, listen, man, I quit college. I'm not even using anything. But no, I guess you really are using everything you were taught because it's just a different way.
There's problem solving things that come across and stuff like that.
But we all fight different things in life.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, we all have demons. We all have things that tell us that we can't do it. You are one of those guys. I'm one of those guys that I took that negative energy and I made something from that negative energy. Yep. What advice can you give somebody that may be listening to this? And I always say kids, but you know what? It could be adults. It could be somebody that could be your father's age.
Absolutely.
That you're giving them advice saying, hey, you know what? You can freaking do it, man.
Absolutely.
You can do this. I did it. You can do it. What advice can you give someone?
Yeah. Honestly, from where I stand at is being where I'm at now. Like, honestly, if I can do it as an uneducated individual, at least formally,
Right.
The real thing is like there's a level of community really changes a lot.
Yep.
There's a level of if you're not tied in with people that care for you, if you're not tied in with a group that honestly cares about your well-being and seeks your betterment along with them, it's a toxic environment that won't grow you.
Yep. So surround yourself with good people.
Surround yourself with good people.
That's
If you want to be,
sometimes if it's you by yourself looking back at yourself in the mirror, I tell people that all the time. I say, look in the mirror. That may be the only positive person you talk to all day long.
Yep, absolutely. and the thing is, so much inside of us. I'm not a person that thinks I'm a success.
Yeah.
I am my own worst critic.
We all are.
Everything is.
Yeah. But you are good at what you do. That's the thing. I mean, you do. A senior sound guy at our church, and we both go to a huge church. I mean, some people call it a mega church, and you know what I mean. We're surrounded by good people there,
right?
But
that follows along kind of the statement of finding community that supports you, right? I decided a long time ago to not follow into several traps that I've seen throughout my life. For instance, certain debts, certain pitfalls that are so common in the world today.
Yep.
Immense credit card debt, immense debt in general, things like that. Now, I still have debt. Don't get me wrong, but I'm not questioning how I'm going to live tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because of choices I made yesterday.
Yep.
But I learned those things from purposely interacting with people in my life that were already there and seeing how that's done in a practical way.
When I give somebody advice, I said, you don't have to take the advice, but let me tell you, I've already been through it twice. So if you don't, then you're the dumb one that's not going to take my advice. And those of you that may be listening to this and you might hear some thunder and rain, earlier, I asked Paul, probably about an hour and a half ago, I said, is that lightning? And he goes, no, it's just some heat lightning. Don't worry about it. I said, okay, well, I'm looking outside the window here in the basement, and it is raining. It is thundering. And yes, Paul, that is lightning coming through the window.
No,
so
that's good stuff.
I just want to let everybody know that it is not. No, I love a great storm too, but I want to make sure that everybody knows that it's not your sound system that is making this do that. So, but this actually adds some ambiance.
Gives us a little bit feeling in the podcast. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, when
surround yourself with good people is basically what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. Like if you want, so say you want to be financially successful.
Yeah.
Okay? Everybody does. Let's be honest. We all want to be financially comfortable.
Yeah.
Would you take your advice from the guy that doesn't know how to fill his gas tank, or would you take your advice from the guy that is regularly succeeding in the financial market, is regularly succeeding with his finances in his home, and is really available to go, hey, I can help this person.
Yeah.
Hey, I can do this. I can be here. Like who would you take your advice with? So why would you keep those toxic lives that don't stretch you to where you need to be and where you want to be ultimately?
I totally agree. And I'm going to wrap it up with this last question.
Yeah.
And you have no idea what I'm going to ask you. So this is always kind of fun. And I was just talking to my daughter about this the other day, and she asked somebody this question, and I'm going to ask you.
Okay.
If money was no object, time was no object.
Ooh.
There was nothing is going to stop you. What would you do? What's that one thing that you said
if time and money were just no object, so I could build?
If right now I could give you a credit card or a blank check and say, you know what, do your thing. You could spend $100. You can spend $100 million. I don't care.
And,
What would you do?
you know, it's really funny because I try to live my life in that mindset towards a goal. And that would really fall into trying to continue to build a creative space. Honestly, if it was limitless, I would try to take it to a national or even international scale if it could, with the right skill set. But the really building creative space for film, for music, for art that could inspire people of all ages to
I'm getting
truly
goosebumps.
to truly
Be themselves,
have creative freedom, but also have the ability to understand the true love of God as an individual, no matter what walk of life that it is. Those are the two that's the real big tie-in of it. You can create art, you can be creative, you can also be a Christian and do it really well.
Right. Yeah.
And that is something that I feel so much, there's kind of that weird disparity for right now. And I don't think there's any need for it. I think there's this gap between you can't be creative, but ultimately we have a God that is a creative God. Let's be honest. He created. There's nothing new under the sun for him.
That's right.
He created the creativity that lets us create.
Yeah.
Amen. I don't think you get more baseline than that in terms of the source, but that would really be, I think my goal is to create people, systems, and an opportunity for those things. Now,
before I wrap it up, and I appreciate you coming and help me set everything up and be my first guest on this podcast, which is Outstanding Life Podcasts with your friend, the Motivational Cowboy. How can people get a hold of you? How can people find you? How can people look and hear what you've done? So as of right now, I'm working on a website at soulbridgestudio.com. But the easiest way to contact me is just paul.long, paul.long at soulbridgestudio.com. That's it? That's it. Well, hey, just a real quick selfie of us doing our first podcast. Boom, I think. Boom. Well, this is Johnny D, the Motivational Cowboy. Make sure you check out this episode of Outstanding Life Podcast at motivationalcowboy.com. And you can always tweet me at MCJohnnyD4. Be safe, have fun, and have yourselves an outstanding day. We'll see you. Good night. Bye-bye.